All right. Good morning once again. Can you all hear me?
Good morning, sir.
All right. So, just to continue from where we stop, uh, this is web development section. We are currently on JavaScript. We started looking at, I think that was the first class. We looked at definition, or let's say general introduction to JavaScript. We define JavaScript as one of the most used front-end programming language, which is used to add actions or interactivity to our website contents. Then after that, we looked at how to set up a development environment for writing JavaScripts. Then we also talk about various ways you can connect JavaScript, or various ways we can implement JavaScript within our projects, particularly when you are working alongside with other languages like HTML and CSS. That was what led to this very file that we are seeing on the screen. So the first thing we did was to set up a project folder, and then we added other related folder like CSS, images, and the JavaScript. And then inside the JavaScript, but before that, we created a HTML file, and I explained to us why we need the HTML file, because the HTML file helps us to render the JavaScript actions through the HTML contents. And that is why we created this file. And then we created an external JavaScript, which I told us that an external JavaScript is where you are separating the entire JavaScript code from the HTML code, which are also recommended as the best practice. That was what led to linking the JavaScript file, being an external file, using the scripts with the attributes source, so that we can connect the two files together. So we created the JavaScript external file inside its folder, and then we link it to the HTML document. And then we also started looking at variable. I don't know if I've actually talked on variable officially, probably maybe just to illustrate one or two things. I think we have not officially explained variable. What led to this variable we are having on the screen was as a result of trying to confirm if we have successfully connected the two files together. So I'm going to start from variable. So we have, let's say, three main topics to cover in this session as the time permits us. All right, so let's start with variable. Let's start with variable. So let's say JavaScript. So I'm using comment to explain. Make sure you are taking notes. JavaScript variable. Now we can define variable as containers created by users within the program to hold certain values. I repeat again, I said variables are containers Variables are containers, are used to hold values within the program. And just to explain better, the variable concept is needed where you want to acknowledge values that ordinarily did not come as an input or inbuilt within the language. And you know very well that at some point, you are going to make use of such value while you are building your application. And that is why we have to learn variables so that we know how to capture such information into the program. So take, for instance, I want to develop a simple calculator that will require 3 numbers, or let's say 2 numbers, to perform a simple arithmetic calculation. For example, plus or minus or times. So I would definitely need 2 variables. To achieve that, I will need a variable. In other words, I will need a container that will hold the first value. And then I will also need another container that will hold the second value. So that is one of the best use case of variable. So just to quickly explain the variable syntax to us before we implement that as simple projects. So variable syntax. Remember, before now, I have told us that whenever you are writing a program, you should learn to understand syntax of functions or certain properties. It helps you to understand what you are doing and to also understand the structure of the code, talking about the standard structure. So the word syntax means set of rules that guide programmers on how to speak a particular language, just like we are speaking JavaScript at the moment. So the variable syntax has 3 sections. The first section is the variable name. The first section is the variable name. So we need to understand that. And the variable name has certain conventions when it comes to naming them. You don't name your variable with a keyword. A keyword means a word that has been used to store a function within the program already. For example, now I cannot use words like let. I cannot use words like var. I cannot use words like costs as my variable name. It's not allowed. Why? Because these words, they are keywords in the program already, doing 1 or 2 things. So once you obey that principle, you can use any other words, a word as the name of your variable. You can use your name. You can use abbreviations. So when we are talking about variable name, always understand that your variable naming convention should be that you adhere to these instructions that I'm giving. But there is a section called the name of the container. And the reason for that is that whenever you need the value in that container, whenever you want to call out the value in that container, then the container now has an identity. That is why a variable must have a unique name. So part of the variable syntax, we now have what we call assignment operator. Assignment operator is part of what we need to know as variable syntax. So what do we mean by operators generally? Operators in programming are special signs or symbols that denotes different meaning. For example, in programming, if you write plus, it means addition. This sign like this means addition. This one like this means what? Minus. Why this one means multiplication. If you have two of it, it means exponential. That is just like raised power. And then you have this is division. So we need to understand that in programming, there are different word operators, and these operators has different word operand. That is, they have different expression. All right. So just like we know them in mathematics, they have their own mathematical expression. So they influence the way a calculation is performed. So they are very powerful. So now we have under this operator, we can actually group them into different categories. But that is not the area I am talking about right now. So we have the equals to like this. So when it is single equal sign in programming across all programming languages, that is referred to as what? An assignment operator. So which means that an operator that is used to allocate value into a container, which is the what? The variable. Now, in programming, generally, when it is two equal sign like this, it means equality. It means equality. In some programming, you can see three of them. In some programming, you can see three of them, which means what? To be precise, that it must be exactly. It's just like when we have the value of pi, which must be exactly what? 3.14. So when your emphasis is on the precision, exactly, that is what name prosper must be equals to this. Your emphasis is on precision. That's where you use what? The three words equal sign. So all of these are called operator. So when I said number two part of your variable is assignment operator, then this is what I am referring to. Then the third part of your variable, which happens to be the last section or the last part of a variable, is called the value section, the value. So when you are declaring variable in JavaScript, always ensure that these three parts are what? Included. If you omit one of them, your code is going to generate error. So bear that at the back of your mind. So in summary, before we look at the implementation rather, is that variables are container which you and I as programmer create within the program in order to what? To accept value from the outside into the what? The program. And there is an agenda for that. Those values that you are holding with the variable will be required in the course of your programming. So that is why you are, first of all, trying to acknowledge them within the program memory. So let's assume that we are given a task as programmer using JavaScript. And what is the task? We are to create three variables. And these three variables, one will store a string, which is text in programming. The other one will store number, integer. So that is also another type of what? Data in programming. So the task is create three different variables to hold different values, right? Comma, one value should be string. One value should be string, while other should be integer. So how do we implement this? So remember, we just want to use this to understand how to declare variable. Now, in JavaScript, we have what we call variable declaration keywords. Variable declaration keywords. So the word variable keywords means certain property or inbuilt functions that are used to introduce variable. So they are three of them. We have the let. So let me name this variable declaration keywords. So we have the lets, so that when you see me using them as we proceed, you know what we are doing. We have the lets, we have the var, and then finally we have the costs. So let me quickly explain them. The lets and the var are used to create value that will vary. For example, I can create a container and store prosper in that container with the intention of probably in the future changing the value from prosper to Eloho. So which means that you have practically informed JavaScript that whatever I am holding in this container is bound to change. But if you are very sure, which is required in most time when you are programming, that you store certain value in a container that cannot be changed, then you use what? The costs. So the cost is actually from the word constants. For example, now if I want to create a variable that we hold value of pi, which is always constant at what? 3.14, then I can use cost. If I want to create a variable that we hold my name Prosper, and I've already concluded that throughout the program, that variable can only hold what? Prosper. That name should not be reused to hold another value. Then I will use what? Constant. So most programmers will use constant because we don't want to override what? Other words, storage location or values. I hope we are following. Let me get a response.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So now let's answer the task. We are to create three different variables, and that is to teach us how to declare variable. One is a string variable. String is one of the primitive type of data in programming, which deals with what? Text or character-based words information. So example, my name is a string. 20 is a number, but is an integer, so long it does not have a decimal point or unit. Now, I will say, remember the variable naming convention that I just talked about? So I will say my first name or my name. So I can just use what? F name. So I'm using camel case, where the first word, the whole of it will be what? Lowercase, while the beginning of other words, we begin with what? Uppercase, while the rest remain lowercase. So it is either you add underscore in between the two words or you merge them together. And then remember I said variable has a name section. So that F name is the name of the variable. Then I will introduce the equal sign to assign value into the variable. So that equal sign is just like the pipe that we carry the value and put it inside what? The container with the name F name. And then the type of value you are storing in the variable determine the rule to observe. For example, because I am storing a string, which means text, inside this variable, the law or the rule in programming, particularly with JavaScript, says that you must acknowledge it as a string, which means that you have to use either single quote like this or double. Then you now pass in the value in between it. So the value can be prosper. All right. Now in JavaScript, you must indicate that you have ended that line of code by what? Terminating it with semicolon. So just adding that semicolon indicates or send a message to JavaScript that what? I have come to the end of that code. And then before you go to the next line. But remember, I can as well do something like this to observe the keywords. You know, sometimes when we omit declaring the variable with the keywords, it still works because these programming languages today, they are not AI based. So even when you omit some fundamental things, they correct them for you automatically, or they assume, they read your mind, they know what you intend to do. So normally I'm supposed to say, let f name, I'm to go by the standard f name, comma, and then remember we want to capture what? Three different what? Information in a variable. One is string, the other two will be what? Numbers. So I will say what? The second one will be what? Num1, then comma what? Num2, and then you end it here. So what you have done at this level is that you have only created empty containers that are yet to receive values. So the standard practice, you can go this way, where you declare the what? The containers first, and then you now start assigning value. So here I have said, okay, where f name receives what? Prosper, and then num1 receive what? 90, and then num2, you can see that as soon as I type nu, it brings out what? This keyword, because you have already captured them. So they are now empty variables in the program already. Then where num2, we store a floating number. A floating number is a type of number in programming that has decimal numbers or points. For example, once if I store 90.5, in programming, this is floats. This is floats. This is not this is not an integer. I hope you understand that. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Just a minute. Okay, so I'm using one stone to kill two birds. At the same time, I'm also explaining basic data type in JavaScript. So this is a string, which means text, while this is a number, but falls under integer because it is a whole number, while this is also a number, but falls under what? Double or float, because it has decimal units. So we need to understand that as programmers. Now, we want to print out the values of this variable. Remember that the reason why we capture 90 inside a variable num1, the reason why we capture 90.5 inside a variable num2, the reason why we capture prosper inside a variable fname, because we would like to do something or program an app that we use the values inside those variables. So that is actually one of the reasons why we created those variables, because we want to capture this information, because this information will be used in the course of the programming. So based on that, I will just do some mathematical calculations. So let me just use the value I have in the num1 and the num2. Now, before we look into that, or let me just explain that, because after this topic, we'll be looking at very important topic that you cannot avoid as far you are a JavaScript programmer. So I can decide to create another variable. So let me just put a comment here to explain what I want to achieve. So here, now that we have captured those values in our variable, what we want to achieve now is perform. And that is to also inform us that JavaScript can be used for different kinds of what? Calculation. So perform different calculation with the variables values. Perform different calculation with the variable what? Values. All right. So now, for example, I want to perform addition, and that is to explain the operators that I talk about. So I will say, okay, add calculator equals to take the value in num1, then add it with the value in num2. All right? So that is what that calculator is going to do. Now, if we go to the front end, remember that we are to view our results using what? HTML elements to render them. Like I told us that day, you cannot come here and say you want to view your results. You have to render this result with HTML what? Element. And that is why we connected. So I have to go back to my HTML file and right click and select what? Maybe you use any of the extension you must have installed just to see what we have programmed so far in the front end. So let's hold on for the front end to open. So you can see what we have here is only what you program in the HTML, which is what? Welcome to web development training. Welcome to web development training. That is the only information that are displayed. What about the one we just wrote in JavaScript? The whole of this, I expected an answer that will have added, or a result that will have added 90 plus 90.5. I give it something like 180.5. But unfortunately, you can see that what is not showing it. Why? Because we have not consulted JavaScript what? Method for outputting its results. And that will now lead us to the second topic in this section. But before that, I will just borrow one of them just for us to see our answer before we look at the topic properly. I told us that in JavaScript, or let me say in JavaScript, whenever you write your scripts and you want to see the result of that script, you must use one of the global methods to output it. So we are going to talk about those methods shortly. But before that, I will just tell JavaScript that what display the answer on the browser body. So I will say document. I will say documents. We are still going to look at this properly now once I'm done with this. Document, right? So this is one of the JavaScript what? Method that is used to output its results. What result do you want to see? You have written a calculation for addition of what? Two values. And you have performed that calculation. You have given that calculator the value you have in num1 variable and the value you have in num2 variable. Now, you now want to output the calculation, the result that will have been stored in add. So we are to supply what? Add as the what? The function parameter or the input. So if I go to the front end now, you see that what we are able to print that result as what 180.5. Now this program, this app, this is an app. This app is dynamic. For example, if I alter the value here, let's say I change here to 200, and I go back to the front end, you see that what that has automatically influenced the value. So we must understand that whenever you write a program in JavaScript and you want to see the result, you have to what use any of the global output functions, which we are going to look at. But before we look at that, there are some things I want to quickly show us, which is very, very fundamental that we know before we go into that topic as the last topic for this session. Now, I just told us that this is what integer. Can anybody unmute and tell us why we are describing this data type as integer? I need a quick response, please.
Because it's a number.
Yes, so this one is not a number. Is that what we are saying? What makes this one integer? What makes this one float?
Because
it has a decimal point.
Good. I told you that once a number in programming has a decimal unit, that is what a floating number or a double number. And if it doesn't, if it is a whole number, it is an integer. All right. Now, I want to test JavaScript's knowledge, whether JavaScript has actually acknowledged that this is an integer or this is what a float. We want to know. So there is a function to check that. So let me use comment to explain that. A function to check data type in JS. Function to check data type in JS. And the function is type of type of. That is the function. So this function helps us to check what is the type of data in a variable or in a string. So for example, I can come here and say document, because I want to see it, document dot write, and then I'll say what type of is a function, and then I will nest it inside the main function, and then I want to check the type of data in num1. I want to check the type of data in num1. So if I go to the front end, what did it print out? Number. It printed out what? Number. Now, if I want to check what I have in what? Fname. What I have in Fname, let's go to the front end and check that will have printed out what? String. So you can see that JavaScript actually knows what it's doing. But because it does not have the level of AI, Python has, that is why it's not able to tell us exactly the type of number to be integer. It just simply said what? It is a number. Now, if you have used JavaScript what? Constructs, that is what? You cast the value. Let's do something. Just pay attention here. Now, let's assume that this particular number, you cast it instead of what? Writing it. Because the way I wrote it initially gives JavaScript the responsibility to factor out the type of data that variable is holding. But if I want to be specific, then I will have done something like this, int, then I'll put that 200 inside here. So if I go back and check that num1, now that we are using JavaScript what? Integer what? Constructor or casting. Then if I put the num1 and I check again, you will say that what? It's not saying it. It's not saying it, which means that what is confusing it now. So it's expected that what it's supposed to be a dynamically typed what programming language, that is the language that factor out the type of value itself. So I'm just saying that admin is Python now. Whether you do this or not, Python will tell you that this is a whole number to be integer, while this is what? A number, but is a float. But JavaScript is just recognizing that what is a number. So that is one thing we need to what? Understand. So let me even see whether let's check again. Fine. So another basic thing I want us to understand is how do we prompt in JavaScript? How do we prompt? You know, for some of us that are also in my Python class training, people like Mrs. Oyikosi, I think you can see that most of these things are repeated. This is what you learned yesterday night, and that is what we are repeating. That is why I told us that once you are learning one programming language, there are about 30 to 40% of things, particularly at the elementary stage, that are the same. So when you have knowledge of multiple programming language, is a plus, because what you could not understand in one, you will understand it in the other. Now, let's look at this before we come back to the main topic, the other topic, because I have sorted out variable. And we are still trying to do some manipulation that are very necessary for us to understand. So let's assume that you want to do what we call soft coding, because what you did here now is hard coding. Why did I say it is hard coding? You are not collecting users' input dynamically. You have already know the person's name. Let's assume that you don't know the person's name. So you want to create a container or a placeholder that will be given to the person. Put your name here. And once the person put in his name or her name, take that value and store it in a variable. That is what we want to learn now, which is called what? JavaScript JS what? Prompts. That is the concept. For those that are in Python, you know, we achieve this with what? Input. But you can see different language, different what? Terms of achieving almost the same thing. So what is the app that I want to develop? Always understand the aim of whatever app you want to develop is very important in programming. Right? So Mr. Collins, welcome, though you enter late, but we have not gone far. We are still on variable as part of what we even established in the last class, but we are just taking the topic officially. All right, I hope you can hear me. Right? So now I want to collect users' what? Inputs and store it in a variable. I want to collect what? Users' input and store it in a variable. So the task is that create a JavaScript prompts that can be used to receive users' inputs, that can receive users' inputs, put it here, and store it in variable. And store it in a variable. So remember the keyword. Always understand the syntax. Always understand syntax. So what is going to be the code format? What is going to be the code format? So the code format will be, I will say let. Why I am using let, I can as well use what? var. These are variable keywords. These are words that are used to bring out variable. These are words that are used to introduce variable. So I will say let username, and I'm using camel case, let username, because that is what you want to collect. If it's the person's age, you say what? Let the person's age. If it is an amount of a product, let the product's price, that is variable, equals to the prompt. The prompt is now a function. So I'll say equals to what? Prompt. This is exactly what I want us to know that exists in JavaScript. That is a function which is used to receive input. Let username prompts. Then I want to ask for that information. And that information I want to ask for, the mode at which I want to ask for it is a string. And that is why I open the what? The quote. Once you see anything in the quote, it is a string. That is, you want to capture a string. And I want to ask the person, enter your name, or what is your name? So I will say what? In fact, let me go direct because I want the person to enter it. I'll say what? Enter your name. Enter your name, please. All right. Now, how do I now print this? Because it's going to receive the name and hold it in what? Username. So I will use, let me use one of this method that we are using before we start explaining this method. So I'll still use what? Display the person's name on the browser body. That is what? Display the person's name here. You can see that it has already given us a box asking for the name. So if I should type, my name is Prosper now, and I click OK, you see that what? It disappeared because we have not specified where to display it. So I want it, once it has collected the Prosper, display it here, just like the way these other informations are displayed here. So I will now go to the next line and say document write. I just want to stick to this one, depending on when I will explain the rest. There are about 4 of them that you can use to output your value. Document.write, then I'll give it what? The username, because the value will have been there. So this line collect the name and store it here, and then this line will take it and display it, depending on the mode you want to use to display it. So if I go back to the browser now, it's asking me again. So I'll say, okay, the name is Eguero. And then once I click OK, then let me refresh again and see if it's going to permit us. All right, so you can see, so it received the name and store it what? And display it for me wherever I want it to display. If I want it to display as, let me not talk about that as part of the topic I'm going to deal with right now. So I've used this to explain some basic things. Are we together now? Hope that is clear. I've sorted that variable. I want to shift to the next topic for the day. So let me give us like 5 minutes to apply this. So quickly run through some of this code within the next 5 minutes. And then when I come back, we start the next topic. So you can start now. And then for Mr. Collins that joined late, if you have any question, you can use this 5 minutes to ask the question, or you do the same. So you can start. Mr. Collins, hope you are with us. I've not been able to hear from you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Can
But
you
we are
press,
having challenge.
Control plus, so that you can zoom in a little? Have you done that? Control plus. Control and good.
It's
All
okay.
right. Yes.
I should stop there.
Yes, okay, it's okay, it's okay. So where are you having the challenge?
Where I'm having challenge is the connection. Like
Okay, to link the
this,
two files, are we?
to do the JavaScript, is it, I don't know how to write it again. I forgot.
No, okay,
All this one I was doing trying
okay,
an error, but I'm
okay,
using
okay.
ChatGPT, but to
Now,
ask the prompt.
now look at what you are going to do. That very one that you are using is wrong. That one is when you are writing your JavaScript inside the HTML file. So you
That is
delete
the
the,
old assignment, but I couldn't finish the
okay.
script. I don't know
Now,
how to
now what you do
write the
is this.
script.
What you do is that delete that script, delete the up one also. Delete the up one. And this particular file that you declare here, this JavaScript, will have been written in your JavaScript file where you have index.js. Except because what you are saying now is that you want to link them because you are writing external JavaScript, right? Because this one that you did before is correct if you are going with internal. That is, you are writing your
So that's not
JavaScript.
the question, no.
So what's the question?
This script now, to
Hmm.
write it, is it how to open it as in the
Okay, how to declare it? How to declare the way it came
yes,
out? The way it came out.
yes.
Okay, so let me just share my screen and show you. I think you understand it better. Just on share
Mm.
so that we can see it better. So what you are asking is that you are in your HTML, you want to write internal JavaScript instead of external. So this is what you do.
As in the idea I just type out control plus words or slash all those things.
That is what I want to show you now. What you are saying now is that you want to know how to write this script like this,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
now this is it. You just come to before the closing body, and then you type the scripts. You start typing. Once you type S arrow, you will see it. Then you click on this one. You click on this one. Once you click, it will bring it out. You will now expand and start writing your JavaScript inside. I don't know whether that is the question. No. Are you sure we are getting you?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I
Do you
should type X what?
Just type as if you want to write script
Uh,
SCR. Once you type SC, you will
o-
see a drop down. You pick the one without the S because you are writing your JavaScript inside the HTML.
okay.
Have you done
Oh,
it?
thanks, sir.
All right.
Okay.
All right, let's proceed. The 5 minutes I give us as elapsed. I don't know whether the rest actually doing something. So let's just proceed. Let's proceed. So go back to the JavaScript and continue with the new topic. And the new topic is, I hope we are documenting. The new topic is JavaScript. JavaScript outputs methods slash, because we can also refer to them as functions. So how do we define them generally before we start taking them one after the other? JavaScript output methods are functions which are used to output your results. I hope you are with me. I say they are functions used to display. I can also use that word to display your results. So you can see that all this while I have been using this one. Document.write is one of them. But I am going to take them officially. So let's look at the example. I believe that is acknowledged that any of this method I am going to explain or any of these functions, they are only used when you have written your JavaScript code and you want to see the result. So let's take them one after the other. So examples. So the first one I want to talk about is the console.log. Console.log is one of the function. So just to define it, because of time, I will just dictate. But when you are going through the video again, document everything, form a note. So by definition, the console.log is a JavaScript function or method used to print output to the browser console. Let me repeat it again. I said it's a JavaScript method. Let me see if I can try and write fast. A JavaScript JS method or function used to print. The word print means what? To display. To print outputs. Let me break it here so that we can see everything. To print outputs to the browser. To the browser console. Now, what is console? Console is like a terminal. It's like a terminal where you are temporarily viewing what you are doing, depending on when you will create what user interface. Now, it's just like an IDE, a development environment that we have in almost all the browsers. So what it means is that if I do not have Visual Studio Code, and I have a browser on my system, I can write this code. I can speak JavaScript. But that is just for debugging purpose, not applying JavaScript in a real website. So let's take down this note that what the console.log method, so you know when to use it. The console.log is only useful for debugging. Is only useful for debugging purpose or debugging of codes. So we are not going to use this when we start, building actions, adding interactivity, which is the reason why we are learning JavaScript. So this is just like a programmer that is learning, just like the way we are learning now, and we want to verify things. We want to check things working properly before we conclude on what to do with them. So that's why I say it's only good for debugging. Because at times you might be using the real one, the one that can help you to build on contents, but somehow it's not responding. And you want to be sure whether you are getting it wrong or not. Sorry. Whether you are getting it wrong or what or not. So you can just say, okay, let me know whether it is that method that is wrong by using another method like this console. So if the console had put it correctly, then we will now know that, oh, that other method is wrong. Or maybe our code is correct, but the problem is from the method I am using. So that is the meaning of what? Debugging. And I've said it before, as a programmer, one of the benefits of learning programming is to increase your creativity, is to develop yourself with critical thinking system. All right. And one of the things that offers all these skills is when you are writing code and the code is not working, you are looking for, what could have stopped the code from working, trying different options. is a good practice in programming. So never see that as an element of discouragement. Now, let's look at a simple example. What we are saying is that when we check the front end, let's say I cancel this. This is not the browser console. The browser console is at the background. Ordinarily, the user does not see it, but we, the developer, can check the code somebody used. I can go to a website and peep the code the person used, the HTML code the person used, the CSS code the person used, the JavaScript the person used. All of this, you can check them from the browser console. And how do we go to the browser console? Once you have visited the front end like this, because you will not see it, because that function say that what? This one display the results in the or to the browser console. And this is not the browser console. This is the user's end. So you right click when you get here and go to what? Inspect. That is how you can view the browser console. That is the step I'm giving you now. And then you select that inspect. You see that what? The browser will switch. So this is the console. So from here, this is the CSS, the default CSS. So this tells us that by default, by default, we have some CSS that are already written in the browser. That is why whenever you add elements, it always display what? By the what? Left-hand side. Then I can take another step to say that, okay, is the console that I'm going to. I want to see what I have written in the console. So you can see that what? Nothing is showing in the console because we have not implemented this what? Output method. So I just want to show us how you can see the console. So how do we leave the console? To go back to our main view, you click on this console, not this one. This one, you are closing the entire browser. So you click on this and that switch you back. Let me go again. You first of all, look at how you get to the console. You first of all go to your HTML section, your render what? Document or element. You right click and then select what? View with this. And then after that, once you get here, you will now further right clicking and then select what? Inspect. So you can see the step now. You first of all view the user's end before you right click within the user's end to what? To select what? Inspect. And then when you select inspect, you may not find yourself in the console. This is the element, the HTML and the CSS. And then you now go to what? To the console. If you go to the source now, you now start seeing different thing. That is the background. The source is where you now see the main file. This is your file structure, right? And the server. And then you cannot check. So there are so many things you can check from the browser console. What is communicating? So the console is not only meant for a developer, but this is the one that concerns us. You have, all right. So I want to get a verification whether you understood what I just showed us now before we deploy it. I just wanted us to know how we can check the console that this method is going to help us to output our results in. I want to get at least a response from one person whether we catch that.
No, your network was disturbing.
Okay, that means the whole of what I was explaining, people did not understand it. I did it twice. Are you saying that the two of them, the network was disturbing?
It was cracking now. Your network was disturbing.
Let me ask from someone else. Mrs. Oyikosi, were you having the same network issue?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now, but the network, is it okay now? Before I explain final time so that I can go to the next.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that how do we access the console of a browser? Because I said that console session is just like a terminal that helps us to view what we are doing at the back end or the development end. Every browser has a console, whether it's Google Chrome or this. And I said, how do we see it? How do we access it? I said, you first of all go to your HTML and render the entire document with your extension. And then once you have rendered it like this, then you now take another step to right click and then select what? Inspect. So after selecting inspect, you will not still find yourself in the console. You now move from element to what? Console. All right. So now with this, we are in the console. We are in the console. I hope it's clear now. And then I also show us that if you want to leave the console, you click on this icon instead of this. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are good with that now. Now let's go and implement the method before we go to the next one. Remember the key takeaway here. This console.log is only good for debugging of code. You shouldn't use it when you are writing your real JavaScript code on that project. Now, let's look at the example. I think we have created some variable. So let's say that prompt, we want to display it. Okay, let me use a different variable. Let's look at the example. So I create a variable, let's say what? Surname, and then equals to, I'm storing the string, which is a guero. Inside this, remember what I told us, always end your code. And then I want to display this result in that console. I want to display a guero, the value in the variable surname. I want to display it in the console. So which means that I'm going to use this method, which is what? Console.log. I will say console.log. And then I will supply the name of the variable, which is what? The surname. So if I go to the front end, you are not going to see that Aguero in the browser body because we use console.log. So, and I just showed us how we can get to console.log. Then you right click and then go to inspect. So from inspect, you go to console, and then we are expected to see, let's open it up and see console. We are supposed to see the Aguero outputted there. We are in the console already. Let me go back and execute it. Let me run the file again. So you can as well be trying it over there. So let me right click again, inspect. We ought to have seen that Aguero display over there, except if something is wrong. So somebody should try it there for me and get back to me. I think
Is there supposed to be
yes.
like semicolon?
Okay, let's see whether that means something is not properly. Okay, so remember, let's go back and check. Yes, perfect. So you can see why I was saying that you should always end your code. You know, sometimes when you are conversant with all these AI language like Python that tolerate all this, you almost carried away. So now that is a very good example or good warning that you should be mindful of ending your code just because we did not add that semicolon. And you can see one thing about JavaScript. That is why is a difficult language to learn compared to Python and the rest. Because if we are to be Python, the error will be indicated there because of each level of AI. It will underline a particular part that, okay, this is where the error, but this one, everything was just blank. So you have to start thinking on your own. So you can see that we have our result display in the console section. So like I was telling us, you can come here and write your code. You can come here and create a variable. I can say variable name equals to. So if I don't have ID, I can come to the console as a programmer and write my code. I can say, okay, name, I'm storing the string here. Let's say Ojo. Right? Then all I need to do is to run it. So you can see that it output Ojo. So the whole of the code you are writing in Visual Studio Code, if you go for an interview, sometimes they can test you. They will just give you a browser. They will not give you Visual Studio Code and say, okay, write JavaScript. At that point, you consult the browser. Just open empty browser and then right click on it, select expert, and then go to the console section and write your code. Right? So that is how to use that method because we have a different method. Unfortunately, the time will not allow me to finish them. So I will just take one more and then I will end it there. So which means that the next class, we will still be on this method and then probably we add a new topic. So this is how you are to learn JavaScript. Now, we have just learned how to output our results using console. So let's output one more. There's a place where we did a calculation. We created this calculator to add two values. Now, if I want to use the console to output the result, so I will just add the add variable. And then if I go back to the console and then I right click and I inspect, I should be able to see the results in the console. I hope we have not also so let's go back there and run it again. So most time when you are running your code, all these things can, delay. They can delay. So you just have to go back again and refresh the file. So let me go back so you can see the results. So you can decide to see all your JavaScript code, you want to view their results in the console. That is the essence of what we are learning right now. So let's quickly look at another one, the one we can complete properly. So in the next class, I'll pick, okay, you have question, Flourish, you have question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, you
Okay.
said with this log, you can use it and debug a bit to know what is the problem in what you are writing.
Yes, yes. No, yes,
Like
yes. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
like if you are trying to write a code now and you don't really know where the problem is coming from, how will you use it to debug it to know where your problem is coming from? Maybe in
Yeah,
CSS,
yeah.
HTML.
Now, when we outputted this, let me see. Let's say when I say debugging, the debugging I'm talking about here is not that one you are referring to. Let's say you write a code.
Okay.
You write a code. You are trying to output what we outputted, maybe with alert, not with this method. And you are wondering, the code is correct, but it's not displaying the results. You now say, okay, let me use maybe console.log to see whether it's going to output the result. Like that time that it was not showing before you pointed out that maybe we should add the semicolon. If my mind did not go there, what I would have done is to use another method and see whether it will display it. So if another method displays it, then I will know that, oh, I'm still having issue with what? The console.
Okay.
Do you understand that? But
Yes, yes.
ordinarily, there are some clue you can get. If, for example, I want to output what? Surname. I want to output surname. And this surname, maybe what I am supplying, the spelling is different. Let's say this is the name of the variable, and I supply this one. So if I go there now, we should be getting an error. The error, we might have a clue to where the error. So let's go and refresh. You can see that another issue we are having now is not just adding this. We have to refresh. So it's yet to be delivered. So now let's go back there and refresh again. And then run it, inspect. So you can see, can you see like flourish what you asked now? So you can just get some debugging clue here. It says what? Reference error. Username is not defined. Oh, you will now know that, okay, maybe somewhere within. So with this now, you will now go to your coding page, and then we have already know the error, right? Because we deliberately made mistake. We now say, oh, the name I'm supplying here does not exist. And why is it showing that? It's true because the spellings are not the same. So that's the kind of debugging. When you write your code, so this is how it aligns with what you ask now. Maybe when you make mistake and you go to the console.log, and then because if you are using other method, you won't get that clue on where the error is. So that is the main purpose of this word, console.log. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I want to round up with another method. And this method happens to be the main method, the one that you cannot avoid, the one that will enable you to write action or function directly on HTML elements, which is the whole essence of JavaScript. Remember when we started, I recapped that HTML is for the content creating, while CSS is for decorating the content, and JavaScript is to add interactivity, that is action, on those content. So which means that we are supposed to be using a method that can help us to write those functions directly on our HTML element, which could be an image, which could be your heading, which could be any of those what content we have spent time to learn how to create. So I'm going to be using this method 90%. And then I may not even use the console.log except I want to debug my code. But I will use the other one, 10% or 5%. But this one that I want to teach us now, you cannot avoid it. You will definitely use it what? If not 100%, 90%. And what is it called? It is called inner HTML. We refer to that as what? Inner. We follow the case. The case is that the inner is small letter, while the HTML should be capital letter. It is case sensitive. Let's take note of that. So how do we define this method? So let's see what inner HTML output method. So how do we define this method? It is a JavaScript property or method that sets or gets the HTML contents of an element. Let me see if I can write it fast. A property that sets or gets the HTML. Break it. That sets or get the HTML elements contents to the page. So you can see that it's unique. So this method is used to call to to select, to capture, to grab HTML element and store it in JavaScript. And that is why I said is the best method out of all the method we are looking at. So let's look at the example. But before that, note that if you are using this method, note you must create HTML elements with an ID. With an ID. Later, we'll also talk about what? Class, because you can also use class. So you can see that when we were rendering with document.write, there was no place where we reference or where we refer to HTML what? Elements. There was no place where we refer to HTML elements when we're using that method. But because our interest was not on to communicate JavaScript directly on the HTML element, we needed just to display the values we have captured in JavaScript variable on our browser. So the syntax, like I said, you must have HTML element, which means that this is your JavaScript file, just to enable us to use that word, a method, inner HTML method. We have to go to our HTML and declare a tag, an element. So I can just say p tag is the condition for using this method, because you are grabbing, like I said, to set or to get HTML what? Content to display on the page. So I will say, okay, I'm going to identify this element. That is, well, how will I in JavaScript identify the element that I want to use to display the what? The results of what I am doing in JavaScript. Use an ID, for example, demo. Now, I want you to pay attention here. You will agree with me that all the way from HTML, if we want to see something that the tag is meant to display, we have to write it here. For example, now we have to write what? Welcome here. Before, if we go to the browser, before we can see something. But as it stands right now, this is the welcome that I just wrote now. But we are saying that we don't want this content to be written here. We want to send the content from JavaScript using that method. So which means that what? That element you are using to render JavaScript results should not have any content. It should be empty. So just like an empty container, just like a variable. Let me use that. That you are a container that you are creating with an ID because you want to use the inner HTML what? Method. And there must be a way of identifying the element in your HTML file. So what we are saying that is that if I want to use that inner, I want to use the inner HTML to display this to the page, my surname. So I am going to use the method, the syntax of it. Remember, I always emphasize, understand the syntax of implementing things. It's very important in programming. So the syntax will be, I will say document. This is the function now in the place of document.write. Document.get element by ID. That is the reason why we travel to HTML to create an element and ID it demo. Because we are going to tell this function, which is one of the output methods that go to the HTML, identify an element with a certain ID. So it's a function, so you have to complete it. So just to explain first, so the HTML element ID comes here. And then you will now say, okay, you will get the element with the ID, then concatenate. That dot means concatenation. Concatenate, that is what, grab the element and store it. Grab the element and store it in inner HTML. And then look at this here. What we are saying is that grab an element with a certain ID that must have been spelled out here. Then add it to this what JavaScript property that gets HTML element to display in the browser. Then what will now be the value? What will it display? Let me hold on for the young man whether he can join, because I really want him to see this section. Okay, I think it's taking time. Maybe he will watch the video because we are coming to the concluding part. All right, so like I was trying to explain, inner HTML from here is you are sending a message to JavaScript, to HTML, that go to HTML file. There is an element that I gave an ID. So let me put the ID direct. The ID is demo. Go to the HTML file. There is an element that I give what? ID demo. So if I go back to the HTML, which is this, and I did not give it content, I left it empty. That is, at this point, it shouldn't display anything to users. Now, what do I want you to do for me? JavaScript. Grab that element. Now, save it here. Save that element here. Now, what value are you now passing? So from JavaScript, we want to throw in something here. From JavaScript, I want to throw in a guero here. But unfortunately, I have already saved a guero in a variable here. That is why there's no point of me typing it here. So I will say, okay, grab it, then equate it. That is what? Assign it to what? This variable name. That is what? Take the value in this variable and what? Store it. So if I say Control C and I paste it here, so what? And then remember that we have to add the semicolon to show that we have ended that code. So the communication is that go to HTML file, grab an element with an ID demo, then store it in this, and then substitute or add the value in this variable in there. So if I go to the front end now, check what we are going to get. So let us refresh and see whether we will get the value. Look at it here, a guero. I hope that is clear. Please let me get a response because we are ending the class now, but I want to make sure that we understand this. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we will display one more so that we can understand it better. One more example. Now you just outputted a guero. It is not proper if this happened to be an app. This app is not user-friendly. Why did I say so? Because there is no additional description that tells somebody how or what how this name came about. So I need to what? Print some string alongside with that name. So, and I will say, I will open a string here. I will open string here, and then I will concatenate it. I'll put plus there. That is, before you display the name, I want you to say something, which is what? The name of the user. The name of the user is, so I can just what? Put the here. So if I go back now, you see that what the update will have changed. So refresh your browser and then you get it. So instead of just outputting the name without any description, you can just add that string using the what? The string notation. I hope that is clear now. So we are going to stop here. In the next class, we are going to continue with other methods that can be used to output JavaScript results. So if I want to output, in fact, let me just do one more so that it will sync properly. So let me go to my HTML and create another element, and then I'll give it what? ID. Let's say what? Demo2. And then I go to my JavaScript. So I can just copy the whole of this syntax, Control C, and then come down and paste it. I will just modify. So what do I need to modify here? Now we want to use this method to output that calculation, that add calculator value. So which means that I will change this demo to what? Demo what? Was it demo 2 or demo 1? Okay, let's say demo 2. If it doesn't work, we'll go and check. Now, what we are displaying is what? Concatenate it with what? Add. Add is the calculator that has performed what? Addition of two values here. So the result is what we want to output with this what? Inner HTML method. So if I go back to the front end and refresh, and then refresh again, I should be able to get the output now. You can see it here, the name of the user. But in this case, we will have changed the description to the addition of two numbers. So let's say what? The addition of two numbers. The addition of two numbers, so that the user will know, oh, what brought that particular result. So you can say the addition of two numbers. Thought I type it in full. The addition of what? Two numbers is this. All right, so that brings us to the end of this. So just in case you come across this video on YouTube, this is reaching you live from Digital Z Hub. Digital Z Hub is an online training platform that organizes tech training via live Zoom. We train on different programs. We train on cybersecurity, web development, digital marketing, Python programming, database management program, SQL, data science, graphic design, AutoCAD, all of this and beyond, you can learn from this platform. Why you should consider learning from this platform? This platform is unique compared to what you have out there. We don't train our students with recorded video. Yes, after the class, after attending the live classes, the students have access to the video lifetime via our YouTube page that they can revisit to refresh their memory. We have seasoned instructors, people with lots of years of experience. Like myself, I have not less than 21 years in molding individuals across different tech domains, ranging from those ones that I just mentioned. So you have every reason to choose us, and we keep to our time. And then in case you want to reach out to us, you want to reach out to me directly, you can WhatsApp me on +234 70 6966 5919. We have a couple of classes, live class, master classes that are going on right now. We have Python programming that is being organized every Thursday and Wednesday. We had one yesterday. And then we have data analysis, two different data analysis sections that are going on right now. We have data analysis section that run only on Saturdays and Monday early morning. Saturday between the hour of 6 a.m. to 9 or thereabouts. And then we have a VBA class that is programming with Excel. I know some of us do not know that you can create your own function in Excel. We have that training going on also on Saturday between the hour of 9 to 11 or 11:30 a.m. And then we have another advanced data analytics class that is going on every Tuesday and Thursday. Currently, we are in Python, but very soon we step into Power BI and SQL. So if you have learned Excel and Python before now, you can as well join so that you can learn Power BI and SQL with that section. So we have web development section, just like this one that you are watching, that holds every Tuesday and Thursday between the hour of 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursdays. So we have a lot of program, and one big thing is loading. Very soon we are going to organize a world-class conference where we'll be bringing different experts, and it's going to be like 2 to 3 days conference, and it's going to be organized online, but it's going to be anchored of via live YouTube. It's not going to be on Zoom like this. So get ready for that. It's going to be mind-blowing sections. I will also be there. We are going to take different programs. We are thinking of assembling a different professional, and we give them each day. So we'll try as much as possible to get 3, not less than 20 years experience instructors in the field of tech that will be coming to teach us, and that is going to be free. You are not going to pay a dime to attend it. So hopefully before the end of this month, the date will be announced. So make sure that you reach out to me via WhatsApp with the number on the screen so that we can add you to our WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp community. We have about 2 different WhatsApp community with not less than maybe 180 followers. You need to be in any of those groups so that you can get daily updates from us. So thank you very much. So see us next week, Tuesday. We continue from where we stopped. Collins, you are welcome. We noticed your network was not good and you left the class. So, but we have completed. So once you get the video, you can always fill up the gap. So our assignment I'm giving to us, please, make sure that you replicate everything that we have done. This is a compulsory assignment. In fact, once you join on Tuesday and you cannot present the assignment, I will log you out and continue with the class. Simple as that. So it's a must do assignment. What is the assignment? Everything that we have learned today, we started from variable. So go through the video, make sure that you have a file like this, defining everything line by line. You have the privilege of doing other things. You can add other things, provided they fall within the context of this training, this particular class, fine. But I want you to repeat the same thing to enable us master everything to where I stop. So the next class, I will continue with the other 2. We still have other 2 display method. We have alerts. We have
Can you switch to HTML when you are talking?
Okay, so we have alerts. So this is the HTML session. In our HTML session, we just added what? These 2 elements. Right? So we have alert, we have a document dot write, which we have somehow used, and then that will bring us to the end of JavaScript display method, and then we'll now look at advanced data type, because indirectly we have explained the primitive data type, the string, the number, and then the Boolean as well. So have a nice day. See you on Tuesday. Bye for now.
You too. Bye.